Hello and welcome to our tutorial on how to process a bonus check using your Sage BusinessWorks accounting software. Now, by law, bonus checks are taxable. The employee is responsible for paying the federal withholding tax. We will go through the setup and the processing of bonus checks, also show you how you can gross up the net value of the bonus check, as well as how to adjust the taxes manually if you do choose to not withhold taxes from the employee's bonus checks. We do ask that you please check with your accounting professional or tax advisor for the best tax advice when you are setting up your employee bonuses. Now, we do have some knowledge-based articles with the step-by-step instructions on processing bonus checks. If you'd like to take a moment and pause this recording and go to our Sage customer portal at support.na.sage.com and search for two articles that will be helpful during this tutorial. The first article is number 18656, and that's on how to process bonus checks. The second article is article number 18032 on how to gross up a net value check. If you have not been to our Sage customer portal before, let me just take a minute and show you a couple of ways you can get there. You can go to our community. If you have your viewer up, that's under view and viewer. You'd want to make sure that's checkmarked. Go to the community, and in the community you can select your product, which for us it's Sage BusinessWorks, and then select to go to the Sage knowledge base. Here you'll type in the article numbers, and for us it's article number 18656, and click on the lookup, and it should bring up the article on how to process a bonus check. So here you go, how to process a bonus check, and then the same with our article number 18032, and this article will be on how to gross up a net value check. So if you do want to take a few minutes, just pause this tutorial, go out and get these two articles, print them out. They'll be valuable when going through the tutorial and making notes. You can also access our customer portal by going to any web browser. Type support.na.sage.com. When it comes up, again, you'll enter your article number, which for us it's 18032 is our first one. This is on how to gross up a net value check, and the second article is how to process. That's 18656, and again, this is on how to process the bonus check. So take a moment, get your articles, and we'll be right back. Okay, a little bit on these resolutions. Our resolution on how to process a bonus check will show you that there are two different ways to create a bonus check. You can elect to use the miscellaneous pay earnings type when you're entering a time card, or you can actually create an other pay for the bonus that actually allows you to have a better tracking of the bonuses that you have paid to your employees. Before processing your bonus checks, there are some things you need to consider. If your employees are paid by direct deposit, but you want the bonus checks to be printed checks, you will need to inactivate the direct deposit feature in Maintain Employees before processing your bonus checks. Also, if you have a net amount that you wish to pay each employee for their bonus check, you will need to do your calculations for each employee to gross up the net value of the check. We will cover this a little bit later in the tutorial. If you have irregular deductions such as health insurance or 401ks that should not be deducted from this bonus check, you will need to inactivate these deductions prior to processing your bonus checks. Also, you need to determine if you will be withholding any income tax from your employees' bonus checks. Remember, by law, bonus checks are taxable, and the employee will be responsible to pay the income tax on this bonus check. You should always get clarification of any questions or concerns from your tax advisor. Okay, let's get started. I want to start with the two methods for processing a bonus check that is described in our knowledge base article. Once we've seen the basic processing of these two methods, I then want to talk about some troubleshooting steps on some of the more common questions that we see and hear from our customers here in support, such as grossing up your bonus check or manual calculation of time cards to adjust the taxes. So we'll start by going to the first method, which is the miscellaneous pay earnings type. I want to give my employee Akins a $1,000 bonus check. My employee Akins is currently direct deposit, but I want to do printed checks for the bonus checks. So I need to first inactivate my employee for direct deposit. So I need to go to Payroll, Employees, Maintain Employees. I'm going to bring up my employee Akins and click on the direct deposit button. I need to uncheck active, say OK, and save. This now inactivates the direct deposit where I can now print a check for his bonus. I'm going to go into payroll processing time card entry and I'm going to pull up my employee Akins. Now again, my employee Akins has a standard time card on file. However, for bonus checks, I don't want to use standard time cards. So if you have standard time card templates and you get this prompt, you should say no when processing bonus checks. I'm going to select the earnings type of miscellaneous. Now I can click on the drop down arrow and scroll up and down to find the earnings type, or I can just simply type the letter M and it will bring up my miscellaneous pay. Saves me a little time. I then go to the gross pay field and enter $1,000. Now I also need to check my deduction and other pays because I don't want any of the deductions or other pays adding to or being deducted from this bonus check. This is strictly bonus. So I'm going to click on the deduction other pays button and I'm going to inactivate all of these deductions and other pays for my bonus. And I'm going to say save and save again. So now I have inactivated my direct deposit. I've inactivated my deductions and other pays. I'm now ready to calculate my time card for my employee Akins. I then calculate the time card, preview it to the screen to make sure everything looks good, and it does. I have the gross of the $1,000. All the applicable taxes have been calculated. It is not direct deposit, and I do not have any deductions withheld. So I can go ahead and close this and then print my check. So I'm going to go to Payroll, Processing, print my payroll check. I'm going to do just my check for my employee Akins, and this is for the time period in my sample company of June 30th, and we'll go ahead and print it. And once my check is printed, I can say OK and close out of the time card entry. Look at my check register, make sure that I have the $1,000 check, gross pay, and net pay of $738.47. So that's the simple resolution number 1 in our knowledge base article, which is using the miscellaneous pay. Okay, moving on to the second resolution, which is actually setting up the other pay. This gives us the flexibility of getting a little bit more paper trail and tracking of the bonus checks that we do pay to our employees. So we go to Payroll, Utilities, Maintain Other Pays, because the first step is to set up our other pay. We click on the New button and give it an ID. I'm going to call mine Bonus. This is my employee bonus checks. For the method, we select variable entered on time card because we're going to enter the amount, the gross amount on the time card that we wish to pay our employees. The category will be individual. We do select a debit account. I'm going to select my payroll account. If you want department posting, go ahead and select it. There probably is not a limit. We do want to make it active from and to because we don't want the bonus to be available on on every paycheck, so we can make it from the time period, the check date that you actually are going to use for the bonus. I'm going to use the June 30 because I am in my sample company, so I need to go ahead and use the June 30, 2016. Now, for the taxable status, again, you do need to check with your tax advisor on this to make sure you are taxing these correctly. Keep in mind, bonus checks are taxable income. So whether or not you are withholding federal income tax, the FWT taxable box should be checked because it is taxable income. The employee will be responsible to pay the income tax on this. So you'll want to check the boxes and the add to gross, and then we can save it. So our other pay is all set up, and we're ready to add this to each of our employees. So the next step is to add it to our employees under Payroll, Employees, Maintain Employees. And I'll add it to my employee Akins. I simply select the Other Pay button, use my lookup to select the bonus, and accept, and OK, and save. So now we're ready to process the bonus check using the Other Pay. Now, this is my employee Akins. I have already inactivated direct deposit, so I'm now ready to process my bonus check using the Other Pay. Now, I want to talk about something before we actually do the time card. When we created the Other Pay under Payroll, Utilities, Maintain Other Pays for our bonus, we did use an active from and to date, and I wanted to mention something about this. The date that you put in here is based on your computer date, so that's the actual computer date, your computer date down here. This date defines the from and to. So if you enter that you want to do the bonus checks for December 31, 2016 to December 31, 2016, and you're actually going to process those checks on December 23rd, that Other Pay may not be available in the earnings type because it's not actually December 31st yet. I'm going to show you an example. My actual calendar date, as you can see, is October 28th, 2016. I want this active because this is my sample company from June 30, 2016 to June 30, 2016. So we're going to save this. If I go into Payroll Processing Time Card Entry and I pull up my employee Akins, remember I say no for standard time card, and I look for my Other Pay, it's not listed. So I asked myself, why is this not listed? Let me go back here for just a moment to my Maintain Other Pays, and I'm going to change this to my actual computer date, or the actual calendar date. And for me, today, it is October 28th, 2016. And then I'll go ahead and save this. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my Payroll Processing Time Card Entry and pull up my employee Akins. Now remember, we say no for the standard time cards on a bonus check. I now look at my earnings type and I can see that the Other Pay does show. So remember, if you're using an active from and to date, you need to remember it's based on this computer date, not on the date that you're using for your posting date. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead, make this a $2,000 bonus this time. Want to make sure that my deduction and other pays have been inactivated. The only one that's active right now is my bonus, which I do want it to be active. I'll go ahead and save it, close out of here, and then we go through our regular process, which is calculating the payroll check and then printing it. So we calculate the payroll check, preview our payroll register to the screen, verify, make sure everything looks good, all the taxes are right, close out of it, and then we can print the check. By going to Payroll Processing, Print Payroll Checks, we print it for Akins, And of course this is sample company and it is June 30. So we'll go ahead and print. Okay, once our check has been printed, we can OK and preview the check register, verify that everything looks correct, and close out. And then just briefly, I want to explain how when you set up the other pay, it does a little bit more tracking, and that's because we can run an other pay report either by totals, where we can bring up the other pay, and for us it would be the bonus, and take a look at the totals. And here we can see the total is $2,000, which is our one check that we did using the other pay for our employee Akins. Our $1,000 miscellaneous pay is not showing. Or we can also select the other pay period activity and then select for all, if you want to, specific dates, year to date. If you wanted to see everything that you have in history, you could select that. But if we selected year to date only for Akins, for example, we preview that to the screen. Oh, excuse me, bonus. It's not Akins, for our bonus, and we preview that to the screen. Then we can see that it lists just the one check that we printed for processed for Akins that was processed using the other pay. Our miscellaneous pay does not show. Okay, let's move along to how to gross up a net value check. So we have a net value that we want to give our employees. So we just need to back up here and calculate to see what the gross should be, so that we can get at the net amount we want to give our employee. My example, I want to give my employee Akins a $1,000 net bonus check. So here's how we would calculate. For my employee, we're going to have a $1,000 net check. We want to take out the OASDI, or the Social Security. We want to withhold Medicare, and we want to withhold 20% federal income tax, which would be $200 of my $1,000. So the way I would calculate this would be to bring up my calculator. So I'm going to bring up my calculator. Okay, so I know that I want to withhold OASDI of 6.2%. So I take my 6.2% plus Medicare, which I know is 1.45%. Those total 7.65%. Now I need to take, I'm going to clear this out, my 100%, or 100, and I need to subtract the 7.65%, or the 7.65 that I am going to be withholding for OASDI and Medicare. That equals 92.35. Now I need to make a percentage out of this. So to do that, I have to move the decimal place over by 2. So for me, it'll be 0.9235. Okay? I know that I want a $1,000 net check for my employee. I know that I want to withhold $200 of federal income tax. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to take my $1,000 net check. I'm going to add in the $200 of federal income tax that I want to withhold. So I've got to add that in to the actual net amount, and that's $1,200. I then need to take this $1,200 and divide that by my multiplier percentage, which was the 0.9235. And this tells me what the gross amount of my check should be. For my employee, it's $1,299.40. So let's see how this calculates. Let's go into Payroll, Processing, Time Card Entry, and let's pull up my employee Akins. Remember, bonus checks, we do not use the standard time card on file. I want to check my deduction and other pays and make sure I have inactivated any deductions and other pays that I do not wish to withhold. I want to click on the earnings type and scroll up and find my other pay bonus. So here's where I'm going to enter 1299.40, which my calculation says I should be using for my gross, and I save. The next step is going to be the automatic payroll calculation. We do want BusinessWorks to calculate the OASDI, all the taxes for us. We will have to do a manual payroll calculation afterwards, and we understand that. But for now, we want BusinessWorks to first calculate what the Social Security and Medicare taxes should be based on the gross that we've entered. So we're going to preview this to the screen and make sure that everything looks good. So we have used the $1299.40. We can see that the federal income tax that was calculated is $213.24. That's okay because we're saying we just want 20%. This is based on the annual tables. So we need to adjust this. We have taken into consideration our OASDI and Medicare. We do want to zero out our state withholding and our SDI. So we're going to close out of here. And we're going to go back into payroll processing, manual payroll calculation. And we're going to pull up our employee Aikens. And we're going to say yes, that we do wish to use that calculated check that we have on file. If you get that possible job loss message, just okay that. That would be if you're using job cost and you're posting to job cost and changing any deductions, and we're not doing that. So we're going to go ahead and go to our federal and state taxes at this point. And here we're going to change this to the $200 because that's what we said our employee wants to withhold is $200. We do want the actual Medicare and OASDI to remain the same. We do not want any state withholding, and we do not want any SDI. If we say okay, we can see that we're within 1 penny of our $1,000. So this is an easy fix. We just go to the federal and state taxes, and we could maybe change our Medicare by a penny. And we're now at our $1,000. We can save that and then go ahead and print our payroll check. So remember, anytime you have done an override of the automatic payroll calculation using manual payroll calculation, you now want to print the check. Do not go back and use the automatic payroll calculation again. So we now go to the print payroll check. We pull up our employee. For me and sample company, I'm using the June 30 date, and I'm ready to print. And then once my check is printed, I can then close out and review my check register, make sure everything looks good. We have gross pay, and the net pay was $1,000, which is exactly what I wanted to give my employee. So just as a review, to gross up the net value of a check, in the example that we just stepped through, we had a $1,000 net bonus check we wanted to give to our employee. We wanted to withhold OASDI, Medicare, and $200 of income tax, federal income tax. To calculate, we had to add our percentage-based taxes, which for us, that was OASDI and Medicare. So OASDI is 6.2 plus 1.45% is Medicare. Those two total 7.65%. I now need to subtract that total from 100%. So I take 100 and I subtract the 7.65, which is the percentage-based taxes I'm withholding. That gives me a total of 92.35. I need to convert that 92.35 to a percentage by moving 2 decimal places to the left, making it 0.9235. I now need to add the amount of any federal income tax that I'm going to be withholding. In our example, my employee wants $200 withheld from that check. So I take my $1,000, add the $200, of federal income tax they want withheld, my new net amount is going to be $1,200. I now divide my new net amount by that percentage that I calculated above, which is 0.9235. So I take $1,200, divide it by 0.9235, and it calculates that my gross check should be $1,299.40. Now let's talk about how we would manually calculate a bonus check when the employee decides that they do not want any federal or state income taxes withheld from their paycheck, only the percentage-based Social Security and Medicare. We're going to go into our time card entry. I'm going to bring up my employee Aikens. I do not want to use my standard time card. I will find my other pay bonus, and I'm going to make it $3,000 this time. I'm going to click on the deduction other pays, make sure that all my deductions have been inactivated, and save that. I do want to do an automatic payroll calculation because I do want BusinessWorks to calculate the percentage-based taxes. So I'm going to calculate only for my employee Aikens right now. And I'm going to preview this screen just to take a look. And I can see that it did calculate my OASDI and Medicare, which is what I wanted. However, it also calculated federal income tax and state income tax and SDI and state income tax, which I really don't want to withhold from the bonus check. So I'm going to close out of here, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on grossing up the check, which is processing manual payroll calculation. Bring up our employee Aikens. We're going to say yes for the calculated check, and then we're going to get this possible job cost info loss. This is only if we use the job cost and we post payroll to job cost. We're not planning on changing anything here that's going to affect job costs because these are bonus checks. So we're going to go ahead and select the federal and state taxes. We're going to zero out the federal withholding. We're going to keep our OASDI. We're going to keep our Medicare. We're going to zero out the state withholding. If you're in a state where the SDI is a percentage-based tax that must be withheld, we will keep that. We'll go ahead and say OK. It's now given us a net amount of the $2740.39. We can save this. We can now print our check under Print Payroll Checks. I'm just going to use Aikens. I do need to change my date because I am in sample company. And we'll go ahead and print. And we now can OK this and close out of our check printing, review our check register, and see that we did have the bonus check and the net amount of the $2740, and all that was withheld was our percentage-based taxes. Keep in mind, bonus checks are taxable, so those employees are going to be responsible to pay the income tax on the $3,000. Now there's something else I want to talk about. We see this every year in support. It's a common mistake that's made. This is when, let's say that we have an employee that has, such as our Aikens, and they have a deduction that is pre-tax. So let's say, for example, our 401k. So we're going to activate the 401k. And we're doing the bonus check. So we go into our time card entry and we pull up the employee Aikens. We're not going to use our standard time card, and we are going to use our other pay bonus. I'm going to give him $2,500. I'm going to look at my deduction other pays, and I'm going to see yes that I still have the 401k activated, and I'm going to save that and save it again. So now I'm going to go into my automatic payroll calculation and calculate the time card for Aikens and preview it to the screen. And when I do, I can see that, oh, I forgot to uncheck the $125. So I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to go into my manual payroll calculation. And I'm going to pull up my Aikens, and I am going to say yes to use the calculated check on file. And when I get the possible job cost information loss, I'm just going to say okay, because anything I do on a bonus check should not affect my job cost. I'm now going to go into the federal and state taxes, check it out, and I'm going to look at my deduction and other pays, and I want to remove this $125 and say okay and save. Now, there's something I want to talk about here that our customers don't realize that needs to be changed. When we are manually making changes to the taxes, we have to manually change everything. So if we had a deduction that we removed that was $125 and that deduction was pre-tax, when we go into our federal and state taxes, we can see that the taxable pay, this is the amount of money that would appear in box 1 of a W-2, has not been changed. So we do need to edit that. If we don't change that, our W-2, our 941s, all of those reports are going to be incorrect because this is the taxable pay. Since we took the $125 of taxable pre-tax pay or pre-tax deduction, we removed that, we have to now edit this $2,500 and make the taxable pay $2,500. Okay, let's go back through that one more time. So I'm going to go to time card entry and I pull up my employee, and just for our test I'm going to activate the 401k. We're going to calculate the time card. When I calculate the time card and preview to the screen the payroll register, I can see that I forgot to inactivate the 401k, and my employee does not want 401k deducted from the bonus check. So I'm going to go into my payroll processing manual payroll calculation. I'm going to bring up my employee. I'm going to say yes for the calculated check. I'm not going to worry about my job cost. I'm going to go to the deduction other pays and uncheck this. Now that did take care of the, removing and inactivating the $125, but the next step I have to take is to go into federal and state taxes. I have to manually update the actual taxable pay. So I have to increase that by that $125 and then say okay and save. If I don't change that, then my W-2s, my 941s are all going to be wrong. Okay, then you can go in, payroll processing, print the payroll checks, select it for just the one employee, and then print. And then when we're done, we can go ahead and close out of here and preview our check register and make sure that everything looks correct. Now that step that I showed you is a very important step. That call is a very common call we get in support at year end. And when customers are trying to diagnose and analyze why the box 1 of a W-2 or the 941 taxable pay is not correct, that's when we do the troubleshooting. What we always find is it was a manually calculated bonus check where a pre-tax deduction was removed, but the actual taxable pay was not changed in that manual calculation. Very important step that you need to take. Okay, so we close out of here and then we're done. As a quick review, don't forget to check the Sage customer portal for the 2 knowledge-based articles that will help you in processing the bonus checks, articles 18656 and 18032. Also, if you are have employees who are paid by direct deposit and you are going to be printing a check for bonus checks, you will need to inactivate any of those direct deposit employees in Maintain Employees. After you finish processing their checks, you will need to go back in and activate those employees again for direct deposit before you do the next payroll that requires direct deposit. Also, if you are going to do bonus checks and you have a net amount bonus check, then you need to follow the calculations for grossing up the net value check and then do your manual payroll calculation to adjust. Also, you want to inactivate any regular deductions or other pays that you do not want deducted or added from this bonus check. So do that in the time card entry if you like, or you can do that in Maintain Employees. Now, when you're done with the bonus checks, you will need to reactivate those again. Those can be reactivated easily in the time card entry the next time you process payroll, just like we inactivated. Also, if you have decided that you will not be deducting income tax from the bonus check, then again, get clarification from your tax advisor. Make sure that you get the best tax advice. Then if you need to zero out the income tax, just simply go in, calculate the time card using automatic payroll calculation, go into the manual payroll calculation, select the taxes button and zero out the income taxes, then print your payroll check. Also, don't forget, if you decide there are two methods of processing your bonus checks, you can use the time card entry earnings type of miscellaneous pay, or you can create an other pay in Payroll Utilities Maintain Other Pays. If you do decide to use the other pay and you do decide to activate it using a from and to date, remember that that from and to date is using the actual computer date, not the date that you're using for posting. So if you do have an active date range and that other pay is not showing and the earnings type, then you need to check to make sure that the from and to range is within your actual computer date. And this one is an important one. If you go into manual payroll calculation on your bonus checks and you remove any of the pre-tax deductions in manual payroll calculation, so you've gone into manual payroll calculation, you click on the deduction button and you remove any deduction that is a pre-tax deduction, it's important, it's imperative that you click on that Fed State Taxes button and correct the taxable pay. Because remember, if they were getting $1,000 gross and there was a pre-tax deduction that reduced the taxable pay by $100 to $900, if you go into manual payroll calculation and you inactivate that pre-tax deduction, that means their taxable pay should be $1,000, not $900. Because you are in manual payroll calculation, you must manually correct that taxable pay. This is a common mistake we see. It's difficult to go in and correct it. Most of the time it has to be corrected on the grid in your enhanced tax reporting. So it's easier if you just catch it at the time. This pretty much concludes creating and processing bonus checks. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.